on our Facebook page, and there are various other means, but I forget which. So what else is new?
Bel Ami, which is based on the novel by Guy de Maupassant, a novel written in, I think, 1885. The short synopsis, I always love this, when they give you press notes, they do like a short synopsis and a long synopsis. Short synopsis says, Bel Ami is the story of Georges Duroy, who travels through 1890s Paris from cockroach-ridden garrets to opulent salons, using his wits and powers of seduction to rise from poverty to wealth. So essentially, Robert Pattinson is the... Robert Pattinson, as everybody, R-Pats, who, better known to many as the male lead in Twilight, is an ex-soldier turned rakish wastrel who's essentially attempting to make his way up the social ladder by seducing, wooing and using women, but it may well be that he is as much used as a user. The women around, by whom he is surrounded include... Uma Thurman doing an accent, Kristen Scott Thomas being Kristen Scott Thomas. Should we have a clip?
Are they doing accents?
Well, see whether you can tell which of these are the natural accents. Here we go.
I believe you've only just returned from your posting in North Africa. You were in Algeria?
Yes. Charles and I were first there together 5 years ago. 5 years. He was a little thinner then.
Where were you garrisoned?
Garrisoned to the frontier. Very edge of the Sahara.
I once heard a very foolish story about the desert. It may well be a myth, but I find it rather romantic. I was told that the sands sing.
Oh, it's true. It's an effect of the wind on the dunes. It makes a kind of music.
Oh. And what does it sound like?
It sounds very sad and mournful. At least it does to a lonely soldier.
You? But how could you be lonely? And there, the women are divine.
The women are ravishing, and yet I was still homesick.
So did you get that? So the first voice you heard there was Irma Theakston doing British, and then of course you got Thomas in there.
It was a pretty good...
It actually wasn't, no, it was fine.
Accent.
It wasn't that bad. Here's the thing with this. Also, the casting includes people like Philip Glenister, Philip Glenister does that thing that people do in movies. He turns up and goes, hello, that means
he's going to die.
Gone by third. That's right, Nobody...
Is it consumption normally?
It is, yes, it is. Exactly that. That's it, off you go, bye-bye. So, in the case of Pattinson, I mean, obviously, both he and Kristen Stewart have had to fight against the typecasting of Twilight, and actually they've both been quite good at embracing the Twilight fans. The new Twilight movie, Breaking Dawn Part 1, is out on DVD on Monday. And in his case, he's done things like Remember Me, which was I thought, rather ill-judged 9/11 drama, which didn't really kind of work. Kristen Stewart has actually had a pretty good run. She's done things like she did the Runaways movie, which I thought was very interesting. She just did that thing, Welcome to Collingwood, recently. In the case of this, I mean, I think Robert Pattinson is a perfectly decent actor, and and he appears to comport himself very well on screen. The problem is that this is very sterile, despite the fact that it's rated 15 for strong sex, but frankly not that strong. The whole thing feels... I mean, essentially what you're meant to see is a world of moral corruption, of politics, of everything leading up to, to broiling warfare, the way in which people use each other, the way in which people lie to each other, the way in which a word here or a glance there or a duplicitous moment there actually all points towards some rake's progress towards some sort of... hellish victory, and it's about, on some levels, moral corruption, and yet you never feel that that's what it is about. And the indication of that is, firstly, you end up looking at the set design and the costumes, which is never very good. Secondly, Kristen Scott Thomas is fabulous, as she always is, although frankly she wrestles with a pretty thankless role in which she does the very best she can with not that much. But the main problem is that what you're meant to see in Pattinson is this kind of seeping corruption, because he knows that what he can do is he can seduce people and he can use people, and he becomes a journalist and he writes this column, and then he's trapped in a web of intrigue, but whilst he's doing it, his soul is being eaten away, and there's a kind of Dorian Gray thing going on, that he's beautiful on the outside, but on the inside and yet you don't get that. And the reason that's peculiar is that since Twilight is so much about, vampires and werewolves and fantasia...
Is it really about that, though? Isn't it just about friendship and loyalty and relationships?
The funny thing is that although you said that in a really snidey, narky-sarky way, actually you cut right to the chase, and that's it. It is about that, because the defining thing about...
It's not really. It's about werewolves.
No, it's not. It's about exactly the thing that you said, even though you said it in a narky voice. The defining thing about Pattinson's character in Twilight is that he's good. I mean, he's a vampire, but he's good. He is and there's... Even in the new Breaking Dawn, which, as I said, is out on Monday, in which there is this sense that finally he's become a lustful, sort of full-blooded character, and there's the whole question of how they're going to deal with that. He's good. And in this, he needs to look morally decrepit. He needs to remind you, for example, of Johnny Depp in The Libertine. He needs to have that sort of, there needs to be a flash of the Marquis de Sade in the background, and there's none of that at all. It's just, the hair is a little bit ruffled, and he's unshaven, and he talks a bit quietly, and he looks a little bit, a little bit cross, but no more than that. And the problem is that you're only a hop, skip and a jump away from that and Orlando Bland in Kingdom of Heaven, in which the whole point about Kingdom of Heaven was you're meant to be somebody staring into the abyss and, the ravaging hordes of human. In fact, Orlando Bland just looked like somebody's cappuccino had turned up with too little froth on it. So it was a strangely dry and unthrilling experience, despite the fact that I am perfectly willing to accept that Robert Pattinson will have a decent career ahead. I mean, it is very hard when you've been in a franchise movie like that to move away from it. He talked about Daniel Radcliffe and putting Harry Potter behind him. Obviously, Pattinson connects to the Harry Potter thing before. It is possible to do, and I admire the fact that he is branching out into other areas. And he's obviously clearly thought, well, I'm going to play a dark, morally corrupt, or character who has moral corruption as part of his character. To get away from it. The problem is that in the end, Dangerous Liaison, the whole thing about Dangerous Liaison, or Valmont, actually, more specifically. Actually, Valmont is a closer thing to it. The tone of Valmont, with Colin Firth, he's beautiful and he's ravishing and he seduces all these people, but he's completely empty inside. That's what you should be getting, but you don't get that. What you get is he's a little bit unshaven and a little bit ruffled, and everyone fancies him, and that's okay.
Well, I was going back on that Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy thing, and I was talking about the problem with that is if you go to